Hello, today I'm going to be taking a look at the Brave 7, which is the latest 4K action camera from AKASO. Now this camera will shoot in 4K at up to 30 frames per second, it will take 20 megapixel pictures, has got dual colour screens and is waterproof up to 5 meters. And all this for the very low price of less than $150 US. So let's go ahead and get it unboxed and see if it's any good. Okay, so just before we get things unboxed, we'll take a look at the main features. I've already mentioned the four main features stated on the front of the camera, which was the dual coloured screen, the waterproof rating, and the top photo and video resolution. Turning things round to the side, you can see the other main features that the camera offers. So there's app support, where you can actually go in and preview what the camera is showing, and also adjust the settings. I'll show you that later on in the video. So you can see the other features the camera offers down below. So we've got voice control, we've got an adjustable viewing angle, so we've got a super wide 170 degree, but you can also shoot in 70, 110 and 140 degrees. There's a diving mode, it's got electronic image stabilization 2.0, and this is something we'll test out later in the video. The camera does support external microphones. I don't think this comes as standard in the box, I think it's an optional extra. The camera has multiple shooting modes, so as we've mentioned, it will record up to 4K in 30 frames per second. You can also shoot at 2.7K in 30 frames per second, 180p at 60 frames per second, and 720p at 120 frames per second. As well as offering a standard video recording mode, it will also record in time-lapse, slow motion, still photos, and loop recording. Okay, let's go ahead and get things unboxed. So there's a little tab at the bottom that you need to tear. And once it's torn, it looks like everything seems to come out the bottom. Yep, so just an empty box here. Okay, so first job is to get the camera off the box. It looks like we just need to push up here, free this little bit of rubber up. We can then squeeze in here, and then we should be able to slide the camera off the top of the box. Okay, we'll go ahead and open up the box and see what's inside. So we've got a quick start guide. And we've got a whole range of accessories. So this is everything that's contained in the box, and as somebody who's only ever owned a GoPro action camera, I'm astounded at the amount of stuff that has come with this camera, particularly given its low price. So we've got the camera itself, and we'll look at that in a bit more detail in a minute, and it's got the camera frame pre-applied. We've got a quick start guide, and we've got a cloth for cleaning the camera. We've got our remote control, and we've got 5 different straps. The camera comes with two 1350 mAh batteries, which the manufacturers say should let you record about 110 minutes of 4K video. It's nice to see we've got a dual battery charger and a USB cable. Looking at the cable itself, we can see we've got a USB-C connector on one end and then a standard Type-A connector on the other. We've also got a whole lot of mounting hardware. Specifically, we've got a handlebar mount, we've got 2 helmet mounts, we've got a whole range of other mounts at different angles, and we've got 2 replacement sticky pads, and we've also got a range of cable ties. Just before we go any further, I'm going to go ahead and pop the batteries into the charger. So we're going to have them ready to do the rest of the testing. And you can see it looks like we've got some lights on the side of the charger which are going to let us know when the batteries are charged. Okay, this is the camera itself. And we've got plenty of plastic protection on it, and it comes in its own little housing. It looks very similar to what we've got as a GoPro, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this at the top. This door looks to fold down, and if it's the same as a GoPro, all I would need to do is apply a little bit of pressure here to remove the camera from its housing. And then if we loosen here, we're going to be able to unscrew and then change the mount at the bottom of the housing. Okay, so looking at the camera itself, we've got some plastic protection over the lens. We've got some plastic protection over the front screen, which we can remove. And then if we turn things over, there's also some plastic protection over the rear screen. So looking at the camera itself, we can see a nice front screen here. On the top, we've got a button, which is obviously for powering it up and probably starting the recording as well. Turning things around, we've got 2 buttons on the right hand side of the camera, I'm assuming are for navigating menus. And then over the left hand side, we've got a door. So if we pull down and lift this little clip up, we can see in at the top here, we've got what looks like a USB Type-C charging port, and probably for syncing up with computers as well. And then there looks to be a micro SD card slot. So I'm going to go ahead and put my card in now. Okay, so we'll go ahead and line the card up and put a bit of pressure down, and that's it clipped into place. So we'll go ahead and close the door. And then at the bottom of the camera, we've got a larger door, which I'm assuming is for our battery. Yep, it looks to be for the battery. So we'll go ahead and put the battery in. Okay, so let's go ahead and power on the camera. Okay, so it's asking us to format our SD card. So let's see, how do we do that? What we can see is I haven't been patient and let the battery charge, but I've got the other battery charging, so we're going to be able to take the camera out shortly and get on with things. So let's have a look in the settings first of all. So the first thing we've got is resolution. So you can see there we've got 4K 60 frames per second selected, we've got 2K 30, 1080 60p, 1080 30 frames per second, and 720 120 frames per second, and also 60 frames per second and 30 frames per second as our options. Image stabilization is turned off, so we can turn it on. Video encode, we'll leave that at H.264. Loop recording time, it's off at the moment, but we've got some other options here as well. There's slow motion, so it's currently set to 1080 90 frames per second. We'll leave it at that. Time-lapse interval at half a second, but that can be adjusted. Time-lapse duration, again we can go in and select options from here. Still photos, still photo time. Auto record is selected. Again, if you want, we can turn that off or leave it on. Exposure value, white balance. We've got meters. Scene, I'll leave that on auto. Filter. Okay, that looks to be all the video settings. We'll click on the settings itself. So voice control is currently off. We can turn it on if we want. Sounds, so volume, currently set to 50%. Keytones, never a fan of keytones or touch tones, so we'll turn those off. Boot tone, I think I'll leave that on. Distortion calibration. Angle, we're set to 170, and we've got the other angles as we mentioned earlier on. There's the diving mode we've mentioned. We can use our remote control. Wind noise reduction is set to off. Auto low light is set to off. We put in ISO, it's set to auto, we'll leave it at auto. Language, we're in English. The date format, I'll set it up the way we do in the UK. Date stamp, it's currently got date and time on. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. Screensaver comes on after a minute. Auto power off, it's at 3 minutes. I'm going to turn that off. I'm never a fan of having cameras turn themselves off. Power frequency. Now this is an important one for us because we're in the UK, so we're going to want to select the 50 Hertz. And we'll go back and have a look in a minute to see, does it change our recording options, which it probably should do. I'm going to go ahead and format the card because I'm not so sure it did that at the start. Click confirm. Okay, so that's that formatted. And then we've got reset SD card capacity. So you can see we've got a full card. And there's an about. So you can see the camera we've got and the software version that's available. So that looks to be all the options. What I'm going to do is go back into the resolution and see has that changed things. It hasn't actually changed anything. Normally with my GoPro or any other camera, when you turn the 50 Hz on for the power, normally your 4K options will switch to 25 frames per second or 50 frames per second, a multiple of 50. But we're still on 4K 30 frames per second. So I'm assuming it's got some anti-flicker technology built into it where it's doing it automatically without changing the frame rate. So it looks like to start recording, we're just going to have to press the top button. Yep, so that's it. Recording away. We've got flickering here, and if we turn it around, the front screen is off. Stop recording. To view our recordings, then we just need to click here. And yes, we've got playback on the camera, or we can go ahead and delete it, which we'll do. And if we want to change the video mode, we can. So we can just press here. We can switch whether we're in video or taking still photos and all the different ranges. And we've got our photo modes as well. So you can see, looking at the camera at the moment, we've got the rear screen on. If I go ahead and turn things around, you can see the front screen currently isn't on. So to get that front screen on, what we're going to need to do is to hold the down button. And you see the back screen's disappeared. Now, one of the things with this camera is you can only have one screen at a time. So we go ahead and turn the camera around. What you'll now see is that the front screen has turned on. And you can see me here behind my Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. I can see myself on this screen, but when I try to touch it, nothing happens because the front screen obviously isn't a touch screen. But it's really nice to be able to see this and see that you've got the shot lined up quite nicely. Again, to switch camera screens, all we need to do is hold the down button again. So if I go ahead and do that, the front screen has gone off, and that's us now onto the back screen. Okay, so let's have a look at the AKASO Go app and see how easy it is to connect our camera. And we're going to click on Add Device. Okay, so we're going to need to select our camera, which is the Brave 7. Okay, we need to confirm the above operation and click on Live Preview. It's going to ask about allowing you to use the location. I'm going to say allow while using the app, and then Live Preview. So it's asking us to connect to our device's Wi-Fi. Okay, so if we click on our camera, we can click on the video and click on Wi-Fi. So it's going to give us the numbers that we need. Put the details in that are on the camera and click on Connect Now. Click Join. Okay, so we'll have a look at the app. We can see our memory card capacity, our battery capacity, and we've got some settings up at the top. We've got video, time-lapse and still photo available as options. We've got our media gallery. We've got our record button. We can get into some of the other settings here. And there's our white balance tool as well. So let's go up and have a click on the settings. So there's a software update tool. We've got the current latest firmware, as I would expect us to have. Timestamp is turned off. We've got our screensaver, auto shutdown. We can format our card, factory reset, and look at our version as well. The next thing I want to do is have a look at the remote control. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. And then we've got our remote control here. So we power it on. Okay, so let's give this a test. If I go ahead and press the record button. Yep, recording has turned on. We're now shooting video. Let's press the button again. And recording has turned off. Now I'm assuming this switches between photo and video. Yep, so we're on photo now, 20 megapixel. And if I press the button, it's captured a photo. So far I'm fairly impressed with the camera. I think it looks good. It seems to have a good build quality. It's got an awful lot of good features. And in particular, it comes with a whole host of great accessories. But the biggest test is still to come, and that is, does it actually shoot good quality video and good quality sound? So I'm going to be comparing this against the camera I normally use as my action camera. I use this mostly out on my boat when I'm recording boating and fishing videos for my YouTube channel. And this is the GoPro Hero 7 Black. And this is probably a couple of models out of date by now, and I had been thinking of upgrading it. So when AKASO offered me the chance to review this camera, I jumped at the chance. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take the two cameras out, run a side-by-side comparison, and then at the end of the video, I'm going to tell you, will I be upgrading to the Brave 7 from the GoPro Hero 7 Black? And just in case you're wondering how I managed to record the same shot with both cameras, I've got both cameras recording at the same time on a dual mount. Okay, so I've taken both the cameras out for a walk in the local village. I've got my son Daniel with me, and as we go along I'm going to be swapping the audio from one camera to the other. Unfortunately, when I was in the settings earlier on, I accidentally turned off the option to record the audio. So all the audio you're going to hear over the next section of videos comes from the GoPro. I will do an audio comparison later on in the video. So you're going to be able to see the quality of each of the cameras and also hear the difference in the audio quality. As we go along further in the video, we'll test the stabilization as well, because we're going to start running about a bit, jumping about a bit, and seeing how the camera handles that. So it's a lovely area, it's a nice day. Hopefully you can see the image quality. Okay, I'm now going to do a bit of running holding the selfie stick. I've got the head strap as well, so we'll test that later on as well, and that's part of the reason I brought Daniel with me, to save me having to do any running. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the cameras onto the head strap and let Daniel take them for a bit of a run. So hopefully you're now getting a good feel for the image quality of this camera, particularly compared to the GoPro. You'll notice I'm back out again, and I actually got home and thought I had recorded all the different shots that I needed. Big problem was I hadn't actually any audio recording in the Brave 7. So hopefully by now you've got a bit of a feel for what the audio is like, and as well what the camera looks like in slightly worse light. So I've got two more tests that I want to do. The first is to enable the wind noise reduction on the Brave 7 and see if it's any good. So there's a fair bit of wind about. As you can see, I'm down at Clocky Beach now. So I've got to go ahead and enable this setting and see what difference it makes. Okay, so that's now with the wind noise reduction turned on the Brave 7. And I've obviously no idea whether this sounds any better or sounds any worse. And again, I'm going to have to wait till I get home and see what it sounds like. The final thing that I want to do is to go ahead and turn the electronic image stabilization off and see if the camera actually performs any better with it off. As you can see behind me, I'm in a very rocky area of the beach, so walking up and down over these rocks will be a great test for the camera. I'm just going to go ahead and repeat the first test with the image stabilization turned on, and then I'm going to go ahead and turn it off in the Brave 7. I'm not going to turn it off in the GoPro because it works fairly well, and I think that should be the standard that we compare against. Okay, so I'm now just walking over the rocks, and I have got the electronic image stabilization turned on both the cameras. So this will just give you another look at that. in addition to the test that I did earlier on when we were out running. Okay, so I've now gone ahead and turned the image stabilization off on the Brave 7. I've left it on the GoPro like I said I would, because I think it works fairly well on that. So I'll let you judge for yourself whether things are actually any better with it turned off. So I think now I've probably got all the shots recorded that I'm going to need. I'm going to head home, have a look at them on the computer, and then I'll be back with my final thoughts on the Brave 7. So we've now reached a stage in the review where I need to tell you, should you go out and get this camera? So initially I think everything was quite positive when I was unboxing it. I was impressed with the build quality of the camera, I was impressed with the amount of accessories that came with it, and even when I switched it on, I was fairly impressed with working through the different menus. As well, I find having a front-facing camera really useful. Going from my GoPro Hero 7 Black, where I don't have this, and I'm trying to guess if I'm in the shot and I've centered things well, this was a complete game changer for me, and a feature I think I would find it hard to go back from. So now we come on to the negatives, and unfortunately for this camera, there was more than one, and as well, they were in pretty major areas. So the first issue I had with the camera was the image quality. When I was just walking along in the flat, looking at the image compared to the GoPro, it looked fairly flat and fairly washed out. And definitely the colours that I was getting in the GoPro were much better. Importantly, this isn't the latest version of the GoPro that I'm comparing things to. It's 2 generations old, and if you were to go out and buy it second hand, you would probably pay a similar price than what you would pay for this camera new. So I think that is a fair comparison to make. I think what's probably more of a major issue was the image stabilization whenever we started to push the camera a little bit. And I think it is important to say pushed it a little bit, because what we did was running on a tarmac road, and the image stabilization, the footage that we got with it on, was absolutely unusable. So I don't know if there was a bug in the software and that was responsible for the issues I've had, and this is something that can be fixed before the camera is released, because it is important to say I was sent this review sample before the product was actually released. The audio recorded with the Brave 7 was incredibly quiet, and the quality of it was well below what we were getting from the GoPro. They do offer the option to be able to plug in an external microphone, and I'm sure with this the sound quality will be much better. But again, we have to remember this is marketed as an action camera, and you're not always going to want to plug in an external microphone to use it. So I think summing up, even given this camera's low price and the amount of accessories that it comes with, it falls down in the major areas of image quality, image stability and sound, and these are unforgivable in an action camera. So unfortunately I cannot recommend you going out and getting this camera. So hopefully you found the video useful. If you have, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're not currently subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.